Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip,
And I'm CJ.
and it is Wednesday in a Riv.
Sorry for being a few seconds late, few minutes late. We had some technical issues. We corrected those as soon as we could, and
We're only
now
one
we're here.
minute late. We're only 1 minute late anyway.
Yeah,
By
that's fine.
government standards, that's two years early. So,
Oh,
speaking of government, when I was on actually the local news today, I was very surprised. They covered it on Channel 12. They had a report on the economy and the debt. They said that right now the debt is so bad that we're paying $2 million a minute. A
and
minute.
interest?
Yeah, that's in just interest.
Yeah,
It's not the debt. $2 million a minute just to pay the interest on the debt these animals are running up. And they said at the end of the report they have no intention of slowing down.
no, that's the problem.
They
When
just
you-
keep spending.
Yeah, it's the blue state. It's the blue state mentality. Okay, the Democrats want to spend, and they justify it. Well, we're giving to the children, we're giving to education, but it costs money. I paid for my education. I didn't get a handout.
They're giving to the illegals. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right, Steve. But it's not that they're giving to just to the children. If they gave it to the children and the veterans, and nobody would complain.
That's right.
Nobody would complain. Nobody be bitching. But they got their pork barrel projects, bridges to nowhere, grants for all their friends. On a local level, we got the same crap. It's not the significant amount of spending that you see on the federal level, because they're on steroids on the federal, because they can print their own money and they can deficit spend. But just look around at what's happening in Fall River and these communities, especially in these blue states. I mean, it's nuts. I couldn't believe when he said $2 million a minute. So, I mean, 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours in a day. Do the math. I mean, your calculator has to put a scientific notation on that number. It won't fit on the screen. This is how bad it is. These people, I mean, they're just totally out of control, and that's all they want to do.
The scary part about it is, here's the scary part about it. All of that loan orders that are paying for that debt are not held by U.S. banks. They're held by Japan. They're held by China. They're held by the United Arab Emirates, the Arabs. The same people who are trying to destroy our country don't have to destroy our buildings. All they have to do is call in their debt, call in their loans, and they've got the whole city, the whole country, everything with all the infrastructure set up, and they can change it all.
Yeah, and you just hit it right on the head. You wonder why they will not come out against China. They will always kind of say, "Oh, we got to get along." No, because China owns us, basically.
That's right.
And that's why they hate Trump, because Trump made the United States energy independent, and he was going to make them. We were economically independent, and we were going to get out of this hole. And this is the problem. That's why they hate him, because they're all rich. You see, they don't care if we're in debt with China, because they're making money. I mean, they all got interests in China. They all got money. And this is the problem with the government. Listen, you can't have these people in forever. It'll never work. And this is the problem. These people want to stay in forever so they can do this. But what they'll ultimately do is destroy this country. They don't want this to be a capitalistic society anyway. They want their global economy and make everybody in this country either rich or poor. And that's the way it is. But I mean, that was horrifying. When I heard that this morning, I'm saying, I knew the debt was like out of control. But when they broke it down into something like that, that you can really appreciate when they say, you know, a minute, 1 minute in a day is not it. You know, it's the blink of an eye, and it's like that's what we're paying just to pay the. We're not even paying down the debt. We're just paying the interest on the debt. And the debt continues to rise. It was like, this is just, I mean, they have no shame, and they lie. That's all they ever do is lie.
No, what was the last count on the debt? Around $34 trillion.
30, I think this morning they said 35 trillion.
Oh, it's up to 35 trillion now. So see that?
Yeah, yeah. It just keeps going up.
It just keeps going up.
Spending. They're going to keep spending. That's Kamala's plan. Give people $25,000 toward a house. Well, government, who's going to pay? We are. The debt goes up. But that's not going to help you buy a house, because what are they going to do? Every single real estate person and economist that talked about that plan said it was absolutely useless. Because if you give everybody $25,000, they'll immediately increase the price of the house by $25,000.
Exactly.
So it's like, it's not going to help anything.
That's right. And, you know, in Fall River, we actually have a program, which is income-based, that gives you, I think, $10,000 towards your mortgage with an approved banker, like Bay Coast or Bank 5 or, you know, those banks. But they'll give you $10,000 if you're income eligible. But it doesn't do anything because it's got to go towards the closing costs or something. It's not towards your down payment.
Yeah. And the fact that the houses have gone up, they've doubled in price. Nobody can afford a house. Now, when I switched back to the national news last night, they were talking about record repossessions of houses. People can't afford it. The fact that you can't buy a house. They had a few economists talking about how, you know, this is just totally out of control. The country can't survive this way because they said no young people can buy a house. The prices are too high. The mortgage rates are too high. And contrary to what the Democrats want to tell you, you have less buying power now than you did 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, because wages are not keeping up with inflation. So the young people are screwed. They said nobody can buy a house. Because somebody said, well, we got to build more houses. He said, no, you don't. We got thousands of houses on the market. We got thousands of repossessions now. This country is in an economic disaster mode. But the Democrats, because there's an election coming up and their mainstream media lapdogs, don't talk about any of this stuff. They're not telling you that, you know, the American dream is gone. Shut up. Joy. Be joyful. We want to be joyful. We might even give you tickets to the Taylor Swift concert. Don't worry about anything. Keep your head down. Shut up. And all this will go away. No, it won't. No, it won't. If she gets elected again, this country is toast. Because, I mean, she can't run the country, obviously. She had her second individual interview, and it was horrifying again. The woman's a total bonehead. She's got that line memorized. They ask her the same question. You think maybe she could at least like semi-answer it now? Do you think people are better off now than they were 4 years ago when you took office? You know, I grew up middle class, where people like their lawns. This is the same crap she said
the same line
the first
of
time. The word salad, and she never gets around to saying anything. It's like, number one, she wasn't middle class. Both her parents were PhDs, socialist PhDs. She grew up in Montreal, Canada. in an affluent area, and Montreal is pretty affluent if you've ever been there. There's some pretty hefty neighborhoods up in Montreal, and Montreal's a beautiful city.
You're muted. You're muted, Chip.
Yeah, I actually knew somebody that lived in Montreal. He was a great guy. I met him when I was a very young kid. When I went to Maine, used to vacation in Maine, same area we did. Got to know him very well. Knew him for years. He was the vice president of Canadian Pacific Airlines and Railroad. Very well-to-do guy, but a real down-to-earth guy. He had a beautiful house up in Montreal. And he also had a summer home in Maine and a winter home in Florida. So he spent the fall and spring in Montreal. But Montreal is a very, very rich, affluent city, and some of those areas are very affluent. Everything this woman says is a lie. It's a lie or a manipulation of fact. You know, they're couching it. I grew up middle class where people get with plumbers, and there were no plumbers in your neighborhood. People they love their lawn. What the hell has that got to do with running the United States? Doesn't matter what you grew up, middle class, high class, low class. I don't care what class. It shows how dumbed down this country is when this election is close. They'll elect someone who says absolutely nothing about how they're going to run the country. I mean, she's only had 2 interviews without anybody, and she says the same thing. Yeah, no, she is. But what she is all she is a cardboard cutout. That they stuck her up there. She's not. Do you really think if she gets elected, she's running a country? It's just like Joe Biden. Was he running a country? You know, he forgot what day it was half the time. I mean, you know, this is nuts. And then when you look at the way this country is going down a toilet, and they don't talk about it. The mainstream media, all they talk about is Trump, 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 Trump. It's Trump's fault. He got shot. It's Trump's this. Everything else is his fault. But then they had a montage of what they said when Maxine Waters says, I'm going to take him out. Or Joe Biden, we got to put a target on his back. And then Hillary, my favorite idiot of all time. She is. Because, I mean, that woman is, she is the poster child for the Democrats. That woman is so hypocritical. She was talking about how anybody who puts out disinformation, which she's the queen of, because remember, she commissioned the Steele dossier. So that they should be put in jail. So she's like a Nazi. They said they're the defenders of democracy, but in her eyes, anybody that has a different opinion than them should actually be put in jail. And she said that. She said civil or criminal charges should be filed. But she forgot that she wiped out 33,000 emails that were on her private email, some of which were top secret and never got a net. There were no consequences besides Benghazi. These people are just, they are the greatest liars of all time. With that, CJ, I'll turn it back to you.
Well, I got to make a correction here. David turned around and said that she's a joke. ABC moderators, they got fired because they were giving her the answers and check him, but not fact checking her. That's true. They weren't fact checking her, but ABC did not fire David Muir or Lindsay Davis. That was a satire article that was published, and on the original publication it said satire. This is not news. But somebody removed it, spread it onto social media. It was picked up by several reputable news sources, and they carried it. And then they had to do a retraction. Little tiny letters like this. So just so you're aware, nobody got fired, nobody was reprimanded, because God knows Disney's not going to do that. Okay? And you're right. There was a second assassination attempt. You'll notice that we're still getting bits and pieces about what's going on. What the hell was a guy who grew up in Hawaii, South Carolina, moved to Hawaii, and then went to Florida?
I believe it was North Carolina.
North Carolina, excuse me. Okay? And then went to Florida to kill the president? It makes no sense.
Well, if you read some of the background on him, that the mainstream media is still trying to say they don't know what his motivation was or where his political alliances were, which is another lie. They showed this truck with a Biden-Harris sticker on it.
Exactly.
He wrote a book saying he wanted to kill like half the world leaders on the planet.
Right.
This guy isn't nuts. He had a record going back 20. I saw an interview last night of a nurse who went to Ukraine to help with the wounded. She volunteered to go to Ukraine, and she met him in Ukraine and turned him into the feds, not once but twice. And this morning I saw the follow-up on it, that the feds interviewed him, turned it over to the FBI, and said, you better look at this guy, and they dropped it. They didn't continue they didn't care. You know why? Because he was anti-Republican.
That's right.
Just let him run around. We don't care. We don't. Now it's always Trump's fault. Well, Trump did this. Trump did that. He's just as much at fault. Well, I never heard Trump say put a target on Joe Biden's back. I never heard Trump say I'm going to take them out like they did. And that Goldman, that useless, and I can't even finish the rest of the expletives I'd want to call that useless little wimp, was on TV saying he must be eliminated. So what do you think some nutbag like this guy is going to interpret? He must be eliminated. And, you know, they don't like Donald Trump because he calls people stupid and he said they're morons, which are actually pretty accurate assessments of the people he's talking about. But people don't like that because they're very sensitive today. Their little delicate snowflake sensibilities are hurt when people call them those names. You know, the old days when you grew up playing in the street, eating dirt, and you didn't die from it. You know, they used to have an old adage, you know, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. Now, the wrong pronoun, you get the death penalty. You can kill anybody you want if they're the other party, but if you call somebody the wrong pronoun, they want you thrown in jail. So,
Al, that's not good. You need to vote. You need to vote, Al.
You gotta vote.
You gotta vote, little man. You gotta vote. You have
That's right.
to.
You gotta no.
If you don't
always
vote,
got
complain.
You can't complain about it like we do, but we vote. And,
That's right.
And while we're on that, I'm sorry, CJ, I gotta switch quickly because it just reminded me. I wanted to stop, but I got so cranked up when I heard that $2 million a minute debt. After Monday's show, I did get a phone call from John Brandt, who's on the CPA committee, and we always have some good conversations. He told me some information I think we need to put forth. He said that we talked about the night owl, and of course, you know, we always have some really good he told me that they were going to require this guy to sign that he would not sell that property for 5 years, and if he did sell a property for any other use but a restaurant, that he would have to reimburse them the $125,000, which I think, you know, I can understand.
That's reasonable.
That's a good position. But I did tell him, John, I still don't agree with it. We're gone from the ridiculous to the sublime. But then he told me, he said that, anytime people because he does watch and he's engaged and I like the, you know, he sent me a couple of emails that he said if you want to ask them any questions or engage them in anything they're doing and talk to them. He actually sent me a couple of emails. I'll send them to you, CJ. We can post them, but CPC at fall.gov, Old Firehouse Smoke Shop at Verizon.com, and I guess this is Sandy Dennis's. That's Dennis at FallRiverMA.com. I guess they have website. They have a website. And he encouraged people to call, which I thought was a good thing. I think it's nice. I mean, that's a good thing. I always like talking to John. We can disagree without being disagreeable.
The same thing.
He understands that I told him, it's not going to change my position about the CPA. I think that the conditions you're putting on it were reasonable conditions. But I don't believe that we should be rehabilitating signs for diners that really are not something that Granted, it was a big part of the Flint at one time, but no. When we get all our new Newtonites that Coogan thinks are going to move down here, nobody's even going to remember the Night Owl or even know what that thing is called, the Flint Village, unless they keep writing it on the sidewalks.
Exactly.
So, but I wanted to get that in. I almost, but we had a good conversation. It's nice to know that, that's the thing. You can call, and we're always willing. Unlike the other people, the Democrats, they don't want to talk. They just want to accuse everybody and call people names. We'll discuss anything. We'll defend our positions on everything. We've never been shy about defending our positions. And I appreciate people like John who are willing to. They may have a different opinion, but we can understand each other because we're reasonable. I made it. He knows that I've made it clear. We've both made it clear, you and I, CJ, that we have been opposed to the CPA since it was put into effect. When they were discussing the CPA, we were against the CPA. So
right. Now, remind me, did the CPA pass at the same time that the charter did?
No, I think it preceded the charter.
It preceded the charter. Okay, I was just trying to remember because there was two questions on that ballot, one for the charter, and there was a question for something else on that ballot. I can't remember what it is now.
Yeah, because I remember that long, protracted discussion at the city council about the CPA. Yeah. And as a matter of fact, I believe Dave Dennis was on the city council at the time.
He was.
And he was a big proponent of the charter, as were most of them, the CPA rather. And the Charter Commission obviously was separate at the time. Yeah. Well, yeah, you're right, Sam. But the thing is, if you keep voting them out, Pavlov's dog, they trained it to salivate every time it heard the bell because it expected. Well, once these politicians realize that they're going to be replaced every time they stop working for the people, you're going to find a different kind of person running for office. You're going to find somebody who truly wants to do public service. Being a politician was never intended to be a career. You weren't supposed to be a state rep for 30 years. You weren't supposed to be you weren't supposed to be in Congress until you were, they had to change your diaper every 2 hours while you were in session.
Like Thor,
yeah, Strom Thurmond.
Yes.
Strom Thurmond, yeah. It was, what was he, 100?
I think he was close to it.
Close to 100, yeah. And and then we've got these blithering idiots in here that Pelosi's semi-senile too. I mean, these people stay in there forever. They get rich, they get power, and they never want to give it up. And Alphonse, that's why we've got to vote. We've got to throw them out. Remember what Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens said. Politicians, they should be treated like diapers. They should be changed often, and for the same reason, because they're full of shit. And if you start throwing these people out and saying, listen, if you want to be like what that movie that James Stewart was when he went to Congress, Mr. Deeds Goes to Washington, I think it was.
Yep.
You go there, you do a term or two, work for the people, and then you go back to your real job and let somebody else take over, and then everybody's working for the betterment of the country. But as long as these bums keep getting reelected at every level, not just the federal level is where it's at its most obscene, but at the local level. Nobody should be on the city council for 25, 30 years. I'm sorry.
That's right. Definitely not. Because guess what? If you haven't corrected the problems in 25 or 30 years, you're never going to.
Yeah. And if you really cared about the city, if you were on a council and you were shoveling shit against the tide, probably a couple of terms would be your limit. You'd say, you know something? I'm not going to come here and waste my time fighting for the people. They won't give me any help. They won't elect anybody else like me to help them. That's the whole point of this exercise. That's why we have to vote, because you can't have Michelle, the only one, screaming all the time and everybody else going, yeah, and that's the problem. We've got to dump these people all the time. You can't have that attitude that people have. Well, we'll throw all the other congressmen out, but I'll keep mine because I know somebody who knows them and I might be able to get a favor. We can't do it.
No, and let me tell you something. While we're on this now, where we should be, the mayor is proposing to expand the housing district again. Remember that housing district that was supposed to be the waterfront housing district?
Yep.
It was only supposed to be down there. Then it got expanded up to Eastern Avenue, then over to Lincoln School, and they said it wasn't spot zoning. I think it was spot zoning. They keep saying it wasn't. I'm sorry. But when you say the Notre Dame school and church is in that zone, and the Lincoln School is in that zone, but nothing else is, that's spot zone. When you turn around and say that the old Fall River Rest Home, whatever the name of that place was, the Adams House, was spot zoned over there too, that's okay. Because everyone around there thought they were going to get the benefits of it, and they didn't. They didn't. And they were upset. They were upset about it because they were told they were going to get that benefit. And here's where the benefit is that they're talking about. They're talking about the HDIP zone. Okay? They're talking about the HDIP tax credit, which comes from the state. So that doesn't affect us at the local level, except here's where it bites you in the ass. To get the HDIP, you are required to get a TIF or a tie from the city government. And what does a TIF or a tie mean? That amount of money is transferred to the taxpayers. So this is how the mayor gives his friends a little bit of payback for everything they do for him. Whether it be campaign contributions, whether it be, sponsoring a time, whatever, no matter what it is, there's some payback.
Listen, CJ, you know as well as I do, we're going to expand that zone to wherever his developers want to develop.
Exactly.
It's got nothing to do with helping the city of Fall River. It's helping his rich friends get richer and the people of Fall River that he wants to get rid of anyway get poorer.
Yeah.
Now he wants to go to the south end because his developers are going to start developing. They got their eyeballs on some property. That's why he meets with one of the Fiolas virtually daily, because I have spies. I actually I got to send you the shot somebody sent me. I got actually a picture. I got sent a picture. I can't identify it though. I got to look closely. It's kind of a grainy picture. Also, it was. I think it looks like it was taken through a screen. It looks to me. I don't know. I got to look at it. It looks to me like North Main Street. I don't know if you can see it. This is Carol Fiola and Paulie having a meeting down here. It actually looks kind of like near the Quikasham Club. I've got to do a little bit deeper dive, but you know, they're running the city just like Kamala and Joe was running the city. You know, Kenny's with him, and I get reports every time they meet. So they're going to have to find a better place than Barcelos or the New Boston Bakery or out on the street, because we have spies everywhere. We get the information no matter where they go. Even if they're in a city hall, we know what they're saying. But the fact is that the H-dip zones, the dipshit zones, I don't care what zone it is, it's got nothing to do with the betterment of Fall River. It's got to do with the enrichment of his rich friends. You know, because what is he going to do? Build market rate housing in the South End, which is the most densely populated area in the city, where most of the people can't afford the rents now. And
exactly,
that's how he's going to attack the housing crisis, is by building more unaffordable housing.
Right.
So that's BS.
And he said in his interview with the Herald News, the reporter was Emily Cherney, and he said that he is going to attack the housing crisis and the shortage of housing by having development of the abandoned mills in the South End, which equates to market rate housing.
Yeah.
Okay, market rate housing.
Yeah. Well,
okay, not affordable housing.
Yeah. Well,
like was offered over in the Flint at the DeVal School, affordable housing units. But no, Paul doesn't want that. Paul doesn't want that. So he put a stop to it right away. Paul doesn't want that. And Linda dropped the ball because she said, that building's already promised to somebody.
Yeah.
Problem
I think Michelle said it right when she said we're sick and tired of hearing about 2 or 3 units. When Somerset's building more. They built a 68-unit complex. Now they're building more. But a town of 18,000 people has built more units than the city. And you know what? That begs the question. When you said Paul told the reporter, you see these reporters, they're like, when they interview Donald Trump or J.D. Vance, they try to go up, give him a colonoscopy. But when they interview Kamala, it's like, oh, Kamala, where do you get your joy from? Well, this reporter is not much of a reporter, because she should have said, well, you haven't built a lot of affordable housing. You're going to attack the housing crisis? So it should have been the same question that Kamala won't answer. Where have you been for the last 3.5 years?
Exactly.
Where have you been for the last 3 terms, Paul? You're going to decide when you're going to run for a 4th term, that now you're going to attack the housing crisis that you created? It's like Kamala saying, I'm going to fix the economy that I destroyed. Paul learns pretty quickly. You know, him and Jakey must have courses. He can tell them, this is what we're doing in Washington, Paulie. Tell them you're going to attack that crisis, baby. Tell them you're going to attack that. They'll forget you've been in for 3 terms. Don't worry about it. You're full of crap. Better options.
That's what I was just about to say.
It's a national freaking crisis, you moron. Nobody can afford rent throughout the United States.
Exactly.
Fall River's economy is one of the worst in the state of Massachusetts. It's not helping the citizens of Fall River. Don't give me that economic horse shit about if they got more units, it's going to breed. It's going to help stabilize. It's not stabilizing.
No, it's not
anymore. The Democrats have destroyed that.
As a matter of fact,
Keynesian economics bullshit.
As a matter of fact, it's
that's
shown that market rate housing.
Don't give me that shit. You don't know what you're talking about, okay? Like, don't even listen. That kid's an idiot. Yeah. Build more houses that are gonna build more apartments that are gonna get $3,000 a month when the average income in Fall River per capita is $30,000. Do the freaking math, moron. $3,000 a month for 12 months. That's more than a freaking per capita income for people in Fall River. You think that's going to help the people who live in this city? Don't give me you're another Democratic theorist. Oh, give them free this, give them free that. That doesn't cause inflation. Of course it does. Of course it does. Yeah? I don't give a shit if you had a space heater in your apartment. You did it? There's a lot of freaking people that can't do it in Fall River. They're a lot fucking smarter than you are. All right? You want to talk shit to me? You moron. What have you ever done except run your mouth on Facebook? You're going to talk to me? The assholes at the council ask me for numbers. But you know numbers better than I do.
I don't think you know numbers better than anywhere else but you, because that's why they come to you. You know what you're talking about because you have the facts. You get it together. As I was saying, trying to talk over you is very difficult. As I was saying, market rate housing in communities that have really put a lot of work into it, okay, has noticed an increase in homelessness. Why? Because market rate housing is not affordable to the average gateway city resident. Okay? The Democrats created this HDIP program, and it's been bastardized. I don't know if it was created to create more affordable housing. They said it was just created to create more housing. They didn't think about who they were creating the housing for. They need to create housing for the people that need it. And I'm sick and tired of hearing from Ken Fiola or Paul Coogan, we've already done our share. We've got 23% affordable housing. No, you don't. You got 23% public housing. There's a difference. There's a difference.
Not to a Democrat. That's the problem with these people. Listen, we had Columbia University and another prestigious university clearly state that all these types of programs hurt cities like Fall River. Does market rate housing work in some places? Yeah, they gentrify certain areas in certain communities.
Right.
But they've got to be targeted. You can't just gentrify an entire freaking city because it doesn't happen that way. You don't need to gentrify Newton. It's already gentrified. The average income there is $165,000 a year. But that's the problem with these pinhead Democrats. They use that broad brush to try to pretend that everything is the same. Fall River is not Newton. $165,000 family income versus $50,000 household income. These programs do not work when they're misapplied. They've been proven by people who have done exhaustive studies. The study that we got from Columbia was a study that was studied for over a decade. They looked at not only the short-term effects, but the long-term effects of these things. And they have a dramatic negative effect in poorer communities. Right. These are not the answer to the problem. They exacerbate the problem.
That's right.
That's and right. And this is the problem. Listen, CJ, I don't even want to look because this is another Democrat. The Democrats want you to believe that Kamala Harris was born 2 months ago. She hasn't been in office for 3.5 years. They want to pretend Trump's been in office. They're not going to talk about anything they've done for 3.5 years. Nothing they do that screws up, they talk about. They ignore it. And then they give you their great plan to do it better. I'm going to turn the page. Well, you're turning your own page because you've been here for 3.5 years. And this idiot's doing the same thing. They talk about things that, I lived in an apartment with a space heater. Big deal. So did everybody else in the city of Fall River at one time.
At one time, people didn't even have hot water.
Didn't have hot water. That's
cold
right.
Water flat.
Yeah, they had cold water flats in Fall River too. So, yeah. But the fact is, the majority of people in Fall River, the majority of people in the United States, there's a housing crisis. In case you got your head out of your rectum and off your keyboard and looked at the fact that even the Democrats in Congress are saying we got a housing crisis. And market rate housing doesn't fix a housing crisis because the Democrats refuse to believe just what you said. They do not now, to this day, they lump everything in. Public housing, workforce housing, market rate housing, affordable housing are all different.
That's right.
They're all different. They have a different criteria.
And housing is obviously an issue for people who are of low income here in Fall River because the Fall River Housing Authority has an 8-year waiting list.
Shut up, DJ. Those people used to live where there was a space heater. What are you talking?
That's right. I know.
Let's ignore the reality and let's be Democrats, okay?
That's right.
Everything's great. All we need is Paul Coogan to keep making these people rich, keep raising our taxes, and taking all our money, and everything's going to be better. That's what we should do. And then we can register as Democrats and go vote for Kamala.
The sad part about it is when we look at this, I was talking to a city councilor last night. A woman went into the city council meeting, the last city council meeting, and started screaming about her water bill. She started asking where the increase came from. Why did they hit her with that increase all at once? And Sean Kadim said, we talked about this. We were talking about this for over a month. Where were you? Exactly. Where were you? As soon as it happens, you come and complain. But you're nowhere to be heard when it's happening. Like this creation of a housing zone in the South End. Are the people in the South End going to want it? Are they going to want it? Are they going to be able to have it? Is the Zoning Board of Appeals going to let them build without parking spaces? We're already seeing the problems throughout Fall River. We need to be sure that we do respectful development. You open 6 units, you get 12 parking spaces. And don't give me the bullshit that we can't do that. That's why it's there. And remember, members of the ZBA, and remember very clearly, you are only allowed to grant a variance for topography, soil, and shape. It doesn't say you can give it because there's no parking spaces. Okay? And you've got to remember that. But nobody holds you to that. Nobody holds you accountable. And when people who get appointed to that board try to hold you accountable, you don't let them vote. You push them off the board because they're not falling in line with what the mayor wants. And that's wrong. That's wrong.
CJ, what you can explain to me is if we're doing so well with affordable housing, there's a national crisis, but we've got 95,000 people, well over between 90,000 and whatever. We're under 100. And we talk about 2 units, 4 units, 28 units, and I don't know how many years. Explain to me how Somerset, whose per capita income is a lot higher. You can look it up. And their per capita and household income is much higher than Fall River's, and they only have 18,000 people in that town.
Exactly.
and built a 68 unit complex, and they're building how many more now? They're building.
The other one is a combination of market rate and affordable housing units, and I believe they're doing 20 or 30%
20
as
or
housing units.
30%. All right, so 20% of the affordable housing in a community of 18,000 people that have far more income. But you see, morons can't do that basic math. They can't understand why this doesn't work here, because you have people that make less money, yet a community that has people that make more money are having a housing issue to the point where they're building 10 times more affordable housing than we are in the city of Fall River, but he thinks they're doing the right thing. So you can't, you can't fix, a wise man once said, you can't fix stupid. And don't argue with somebody who's stupid, because they'll weigh you down with their experience at being stupid.
Oh, well. The city, in cooperation with Bay Coast Banks, has decided to throw a family event. Now, I'm not sure if it's going to be in what the Nagle Auditorium is. Is that the old auditorium, or is the new auditorium in the school classified as the Nagle Auditorium? I don't know. In November, they're going to bring the Disney event. It's going to be all Disney music from all the Disney movies going back to 1937. That's some old music there. And it's $15 a ticket. And to justify it, we say, and all the money is going to go to the Children's Holiday Parade. Not like the CDA doesn't give them enough money.
Is that in
not like the opera funds didn't give them enough money.
Let me ask you a quick question, since you are you are very familiar with the campaign finance. Would they have to declare it as an in-kind campaign contribution to Paul's fourth term?
No.
I'm being facetious.
I know.
But basically, that's a de facto in-kind.
Yes, I do. Yes,
because they got a lot of business with Fall River.
That's right. Because Paul's got family in the bank.
And it's not done for altruistic reasons.
That's right. And I mean, don't get me wrong. While I think that family events are nice, I don't think it's left up to the city of Fall River to provide those family events. And I think that the people need to be able to do that, or organizations. And we had an organization in the city that was trying to do that, but they kept meeting and butting heads constantly with Paul Coogan. And then Paul Coogan decided, Patty Rigo and the Viva Fall River, they're the new gods. Oh, yes, they're going to solve Fall River's tourism problem. Yay, kneel down and bow before them. Now I'm going to give them $600,000 to do the job.
What's the latest tourist attraction? The market rate housing in the South End? They're going to have tours or what? I don't know.
Guess so.
What's the latest tourist attraction in Fall River?
Well, as I told a city councilor last night, the trolley. You know that trolley? You know that lovely boondoggle that we have? Has been running consistently since it's been placed online. It's had a couple of events, the karaoke events, at $25 a head. But who's paying for it? Remember, Seth Edkin said, we're going to have to make sure we run it so that it can be self-sustaining. We need to be able to maintain the trolley. We need to pay for the driver. I saw the trolley pulling out of a coffee shop the other day. I think it was Monday. I think. Could have been Sunday, could have been Monday. I'm not sure. But I saw it pulling out. Is that how we're maintaining that trolley? We're giving it iced coffees? I don't know.
Listen, look, we know damn well that look, we had the Bank Street Armory at one time. They were giving judo lessons down there. They were giving a lot of things that they had the youth involved, a lot of youth programs. They used to have basketball. They used to have the National Guard Basketball League down there many years ago. But like you said, listen, it doesn't look drive-in movies and these BS children's events are not feeding the children. We still got 70 or 80% of our children that need meal assistance. So that's what the Democrats are great at, ignoring the reality of the mess they create. Their attitude is, okay, well, we'll run a Disney movie for them and then give them a food program. Don't give them the ability to earn a living and actually create a good life for their family. The parents of those children need to be looked at. The priority was Fall River at one time was a viable city. It wasn't Newton, but everybody worked. And there wasn't a storefront on Flint Street, on Pleasant Street. And there wasn't a storefront on South Main. It wasn't occupied.
That's right.
There were 9-10 restaurants between Stafford Square and Bogle Hill. I know. I grew up there. And I can name the restaurants. Yeah, well, look, what did I just say, Nelson? You can't, as a man once said, you can't, don't argue with stupid because they'll weigh you down with their experience. Because number one, you can't debate them because they can't debate on facts. What they do is they come up with all this. It's like trying to debate. It's trying to debate Kamala. She pretends that she hasn't been the vice president for 3 years. They ask her a question. She gives you a word salad. And then she says, I had a space heater. So did I. I grew up in an apartment with a space heater. And I owned the house for longer than he's been alive. And I've been paying taxes on that house.
I grew up with a space heater.
So we all did. So
Yeah,
but it makes no sense, CJ. That's my point. You can't.
Yeah, I know. I had a space heater. Until very recently. I mean, well, I shouldn't say very recently. We're talking in 2 decades. But I mean, my last place I lived had a space heater. I knew how to make the house warmer. You took a pot of water, put it on top of the space heater, and it made the house warmer. I remember these things.
Yeah, we all did. Well, I mean, obviously, we're a little older, but yeah, but then again, like I said, I don't mind debating people. Like I said, I had a nice conversation with John Brandt because he understands the fact that you can have a different opinion, but he gave me what he was doing. He gave me some factual stuff that they did, and I said, that, and I agreed. What they were doing, they were putting some reasonable control on that, which means that they're not just pissing the money in a hole, which is good, but it still doesn't. At the end result was, I told him, John, I think what you did was the right thing to do. It showed that you guys are trying to pay attention, and this guy just isn't going to grab the money and run, but I disagree with the whole concept of the CPA. I don't think that the poorest people in the community should be paying a tax to help the people who are the richest people in the community for the most part. And
I wouldn't mind the CPA if it was a voluntary tax, okay? If the people had the option of saying no. Because why should 11,000 people or 7,000 people, or 4,000 people, whatever the number was that passed the CPA, why should they be the ones to determine where my tax dollars are going to go and when they're going to come from? Make that a voluntary tax. Let's see how long it lasts.
No, you're right, CJ. My problem is that it was really promoted, and you remember that. It was promoted as to help the historical buildings in the North End.
Right.
But the reality is that why should somebody living in a tenement in Fall River, trying to make a living with a few kids, feeding a few kids, pay a tax indirectly because they're in an apartment, but so they're paying a tax to subsidize somebody who owns a mansion in the North End.
Exactly.
I don't think that's fair. We talk about fairness here. Why should the people who are, and there are still a lot, like I said, it's a nationwide crisis, but they get a cold, we get pneumonia. Fall River, we have a very, very low per capita and household income, well below the state average. And so these people are hurting even more. And many of these people are trying. They have two jobs. The wife's working two jobs. The husband's working two jobs. They got a couple of kids. And they're having trouble all over the world. I mean, listen, all over this country. Groceries are up 20%. Everything's up. They went through those statistics, but Democrats don't pay attention to those statistics. They just say, joy, joy, happy, happy. I used to live there where there was a space heater. And, and now I don't. So that makes it okay. They don't even consider the rest of the people in this community and the plight they're in. They also don't know that 70 or 80% of the kids here need, and they got around that now, so they don't have to give those stats anymore. They're just giving everybody free food.
That's right.
Even if people who don't need it now get food. See, that's the Democrats. That's the Democrats' operation. Yeah, we don't care. There's a problem. We ignore it. And then we just give everybody money and we say, shut up, we're giving you money. And that's why we're paying $2 million a minute just on the national debt. Yeah. Of course. Yeah. You really want to have your socks blown off. Go back about 4 or 5 years and look up what the rents were in Fall River only 5 or 6 years ago, and look at what the average rent is now. But look at the per capita income; it hasn't changed much. 5 or 6 years ago, the per capita income was around 28 grand. Now it's 30. It's only gone up a couple $1,000, but the cost of rent's gone up 300%. So exactly. This is the problem. You see, that's why you can't debate, Nelson, because they don't want to hear facts. They'll just come back with dumb shit like, I used to have a space heater.
Yeah. Oh, wow. We've really run over today. I want to thank you all for watching. And remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. And don't debate with any idiots. Have a great day.